Get us started, kicked off here?
Sure. Trulipol, can you start recording?
Oh, yeah, we got to do that.
It's not giving me, it tells me I can't.
It is
Just
recording.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Tonight I am really excited about our webinar that we're going to have a little bit later. But first, I am really excited to be able to have our info session tonight. We are going to be talking about how students can go from the Public Health Preparedness Program and apply to the DrPH program. We're going to talk a little bit about what exactly a DrPH is and where those sorts of things can take you. This is something that Dr. Lengerich and I started talking about because we had a number of students that came to us in conversation and asked what the next step could be, both professionally and academically, coming out of our program. And the first few times we had students ask, we would talk with them, we would answer some questions, but the more that people started to ask, we kind of wanted to formalize the process. And we've got such a great DrPH program here at Penn State. We reached out to them and talked about how we could potentially have students go from our program, apply there, and be able to achieve their professional and academic goals. So we wanted to come together tonight and explain about this pathway and how you can apply, what exactly you can do with it. So I'm going to kick it back over to Dr. Lengerich and he can get us started.
Good. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for everybody for joining in. And you probably recognize me and Jen from the PHP program, but two other presenters tonight that you probably don't recognize immediately are Betsy Aumiller and Jessica Yingst, and they can wave and say hi to everybody there. They are the director and assistant director for our DrPH program at Penn State in the Department of Public Health Sciences, and Jen and I are both have appointments there as well. And Julie Lentis is also on board here. She also has a faculty appointment in our department as well. So welcome everybody. Yeah, and this is going to be very informal, so please interrupt us if you have questions. I was just making some revisions to the slides, so Betsy and Jessica and Jennifer are a little bit they may not be familiar with what's coming up, but hopefully it still looks good. And we're just going to go ahead and put these up, but please interrupt us if you've got questions, and we'll of course have questions at the end of this session also. So how does that look? Can you see the slides there?
Yep.
Yep. Good. So as Jen had said, this is the pathway from the MPS and Homeland Security Public Health Preparedness to the DrPH program at Penn State. Jen and I are from the PHP program, and Jessica and Betsy are from the DrPH program, and happy to be here talking about this tonight. So just a little bit of an introduction, a little bit of a repeat of what Jen had said, but public health preparedness is particularly a broad field, and it gets broader every year that we go on. It used to be very specific and really tied to Homeland Security specifically, but now it includes a lot of emergency management, disaster preparedness, in industry preparedness, global health, all sorts of things can be encompassed in public health preparedness. And we need both master's and doctorate trained leaders to work in this field, and it's similar industries and similar work sites. But there are differences between these two degrees, and we want to articulate a little bit of that here early on. So we've had some MPS students and other students ask us, why would I want a doctorate? And if so, how do I get one? So pictured here is Shelley Hafner. She is one of our graduates of the MPS graduates, and this was a recent article about her helping to mitigate infectious disease hazards, particularly COVID-19 at Penn State University. So again, this is an MPS student and what she has done. And here is one of our more recent graduates, of the MPS Master Professional Studies, Jenny Krisnick. Jenny, thanks for being on board tonight. So just as a brief introduction, MPS degrees are, their focused study alongside a specific specialized industry and the skills that go along with it. So it is really focused upon developing focused, talented, knowledgeable individuals for a particular industry. It is usually applied to a very specific workplace and workforce. It certainly facilitates career advancement. Often the faculty are industry experts. So we really do have the good fortune of bringing people on board from the industry to be able to help teach our courses. It introduces students to scholarship, research, leadership, and policy development. But for those who want to further develop in those areas, that's where the Doctorate of Public Health comes on board here. So Betsy, Jessica, these are mostly your slides. One of you want to take over? You want to share this? How do you want to go forward here?
Do a little sharing, but as Dr. Lengerich says, please feel free to interrupt. The Doctorate of Public Health program is a terminal degree in public health. So like the MPS, it also is a professional degree. So it provides advanced training in public health. And we can see one of our recent graduates there, Nirmal Ahuja, who was one of Jean's graduate assistants, and he now works at Harrisburg University and did work in India with, I guess he looked at TB medication adherence and issues surrounding that, but he did a lot of work with community health workers with Jean as well. So we're extremely proud of him. But the DrPH degree, we'll talk about the differences between that and the PhD, but we really focus our students to be prepared for evidence-based practice and translational science leadership. So using theoretical approaches to solve practical problems in the field. And our graduates do all types of things. They have federal, state, and local governmental jobs, nonprofit, academic, and the private sector. So they do all types of things, but I think the thing that binds them together is one that would center on leadership. Next slide, please. So a lot of students say, well, what is the difference between a DrPH and a PhD? And there might be more similarities than there are differences, but the main difference that we see is one of leadership. So, certainly the DrPH is going to focus on advocacy, critical analysis, communication, ethics, community cultural competence, and management. But at the center of all that is leadership. And in addition to being prepared as a researcher to do both qualitative and quantitative work, there's this emphasis on developing those leadership skills. And one of the things that the DrPH degree has that the PhD does not have is, of course, leadership coursework and leadership integrated into the core curriculum. But also there are practicum credits that need to be completed. And students in our program have sought a wide range of opportunities, both domestically and internationally, that have given them the tools to develop those leadership skills and also work towards their dissertation topics. So you might wonder, well, where do these folks work? Well, in relation to public health preparedness, I think there's many opportunities. And I know in this first bullet here, there's a lot of different acronyms there, but these are basically government agencies that are involved directly with preparedness that would be great places to begin. But generally, I think that a DrPH in that had a specialty in public health preparedness would be specifically prepared for health systems and medical facilities work. Many large employers employ preparedness professionals, health insurance companies, certainly universities, academia, health communication, environmental NGOs, and there's many others here that I'm sure Jen and Dr. Lengerich could add into the group. So I think there's lots of opportunity that go above and beyond what a master's degree can provide. Next slide.
Yeah, and Betsy, before I
Mhm.
advance, I would just also say that these are some of the similar places that an MPS student would go to too as well. It's just sort of a level of leadership,
Mhm.
policy opportunities, theory-based applied research that they have, that they lead.
Yes, I think that DrPH would get someone into a higher level, especially in regards to leadership. Jessica.
Thank you, Dr. Aumiller. So here we're talking a little bit about how the DrPH extends from the MPS degree. So what can you do with a DrPH degree that you may not be able to do with the MPS degree? So the first is more opportunities in academia, higher level faculty positions, and opportunities down at the bottom there for greater access to funding in academia as well. More opportunities for leadership positions in some of those local, state, and federal organizations that we discussed on the previous slide, greater access to security consulting firms, and more clout and policy development. Next slide. So if you're interested in the DrPH program, we do have a centralized application service for public health. This is called SOPHIS. And so that link for SOPHIS actually opens up probably August, September timeframe, and the deadline for applications every year is January the 15th. So the DrPH program is a 60 credit course, but it does require that students have a background in the MPH prerequisite courses. So there are 5 core courses that all students entering the DrPH program without an MPH degree are required to take. And these courses are able to be taken concurrently while you're in the DrPH program, or they can be completed prior to entering the DrPH program. And so for those of you who are currently in the MPS program thinking about potentially coming into the DrPH program, we have those 5 courses listed here. And these courses may be able to fit into your program as an elective. So I know the MPS program has 9 credits of electives. So you could very easily take 3 of these courses as your electives, or even just 1 or 2 of them to get them out of the way. And then you're certainly able to fit them in to the DrPH program plan at a later date. So just because you don't have an MPH degree, that certainly shouldn't be a barrier for you. We have, I would say, at least half of the students coming into our program with related degrees that aren't necessarily an MPH degree. So if this is a direction you're thinking of going, you can certainly, like I said, include them as electives, or even think about how you could integrate them into the DrPH program at a later point in time. And then also we do have a written exam that students can take. If they pass that exam at a certain level, they are able to test out of these courses. So each course does have a separate exam. And so you would be able to take that exam and waive having to take the course if you had a lot of experience in these areas already through coursework or through some work experience as well. And so if you are interested in that exam, Dr. Aumiller can help facilitate that and get that set up for you. So that is all the slides that we have. I know Dr. Aumiller and I would be happy to take any questions about the DrPH program that you may have.
Just a couple words before questions. We have 3 tracks in the program: community and behavioral health, epidemiology and biostatistics, and health systems organization and policy. So we have 27 core credits that you take in the DrPH program, and then you take 9 credits within one of the tracks that I just talked about. We also have practicum credits and research credits, and we also have 9 elective credits where students will pursue an area of specialization. And this could be a time for you coming in to further build upon your public health preparedness work, or seek to have something more specific within that work that you would like to form an area of expertise. So there's a lot of flexibility in forming those niches that you might want to pursue. Jean or Jen, I don't know if you want to add anything about, the transition period between the 2 degrees, or how you'd like to approach that.
Yeah, I think we do want to talk about that transition, but before we go there, I guess I will take off my Penn State hat and put on my general advisor mentor hat and say that one of the differences between our MPS and our DrPH DrPH program is that the MPS is delivered through World Campus Online, and the DrPH program is a residential program. So that would mean that you need to be in the Hershey area to be able to do our DrPH. So this is where I take off my Penn State hat and advocate for a DrPH program elsewhere, if that suits your geographic limitations, for example. We've got a great program here, and I don't want to diss it in any way, shape, or form. I think it would really be a good thing for public health preparedness people to pursue, but do recognize that that is a residential program. So we do require that. Yeah, and in terms, you know, most of the folks here are, this may apply, most of the folks here on board right now have already finished their MPS degree, so they would be looking at moving possibly into a DrPH program. So they wouldn't necessarily be looking at these courses as electives per se in an MPS program, but that is, since we are recording this session and would be available for others online. So if you're in the midst of an MPS program or thinking about joining the MPS program, do consider taking up to 3 of those courses as electives, and therefore bypassing the need for the test, or you can pass out of those that easily that way. So Jen, anything we missed on that we need to talk about here?
One thing I just wanted to point out, I know we're talking about MPS to DrPH, but one thing that I thought was really interesting when I was starting to put this presentation together, if you're interested in pursuing a terminal degree, but not necessarily a DrPH, the 4 of us that spoke tonight all have terminal degrees, and they're all different. Like, I've got a PhD, Dr. Lengerich is a veterinarian, Dr. Aumiller, you have an EdD, right? And Dr. Yingst has her DrPH. So there are a number of different ways that you can get a terminal degree and work in the public health field. Chulapol, who does all of our instructional design, he's another EdD. So again, our DrPH program is great, but I just thought that was a really interesting point, especially when we're talking about all the different directions that you can go in this field. So just wanted to mention that.
Good point. Okay, anything else? Questions, comments?
I had one that I know that you said that it's a residence program. Are any of the DrPH classes offered online, or are all of your classes in person?
The core courses are all offered in residence. The prerequisite courses that we have referenced, all of those are available online. But after you complete your core courses and you go on to your track electives and your regular electives, many of those courses can be available online. So we call it a program in residence because most of, well, all of the core courses are only offered in residence. But when you get to a certain point, you have more flexibility to do online learning, depending upon your track and your area of interest.
I don't see any other hands raised. So I have another question that I know students are going to wonder about. We have a lot of students, most of our students are working, and they'll take our classes also while working full-time jobs. Are your DrPH students, do they work full-time? Like, what sort of a schedule, like what sort of balance do you see with your student body?
Mm-hmm. We have a wide variety of students in the program. We have students like Nirmal that we just mentioned earlier in the PowerPoint. He was a graduate assistant in the program and went to school full-time. We have a number of students, though, that work full-time and attend school part-time. And so for our program, most of the classes are in late afternoon or evening, 3 to 6 or 6 to 9. So it's a program built for working professionals. And I would say about half of our students are folks that work full-time and go to school part-time.
Good questions.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any? I know we have a number of people online. I'm trying to think of some questions that people have asked me in the past, but I also don't want to monopolize the questions. How long, if a student does the program full time, how long does it typically take them to get through it?
Full-time students typically get to the program in 3 to 4 years, and those that are going part-time, 4 to 5 years. And usually students take 3 to 6 credits per semester as part-time students. Full-time is 9 credits or above.
Betsy or Jessica, could you say a little bit about your dissertation?
You read my mind.
Oh, okay.
I'll let Jessica talk about that.
Sure. So we call the final dissertation project the Integrative Doctoral Research Project, and students will identify a committee of a chair and then at least 2 other committee members to help guide their integrative doctoral research. And the final product is very similar to a dissertation, except for the results section is 2 separate papers. So students will leave the DrPH program with what we call 2 publishable papers that have to be submitted to peer-reviewed journals upon the student's graduation. So very similar to the dissertation, has the same overall introduction, literature review, methods, results, conclusion sections, but the results is split into 2 separate papers. And so students will work with their mentor to either collect primary data, or we'll have students work with secondary data as well. And I'd say it's a pretty fair split between what we see as far as that, and a good mix of quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods research.
Before students get to that dissertation point, is there like a comprehensive exam when they finish their coursework?
Yeah, so there are 4 what we call milestones in the program. The first is the qualifying exam, and that happens at the end of year 1. And that's a short answer exam based on some of the core coursework that they've completed. And then after completing all of the core coursework, they will take their comprehensive exam, which is a 3-day exam. Students are able to work on it over that 72-hour period, and they're given a question from their committee members, and then they have a set of questions that the program has developed that they will use to answer the research problem given to them by their committee members. And then the next milestone is what we call the proposal defense, and that is where students will pull together their ideas for their integrative doctoral research project. And so really pulling together the intro, the lit review, and the methodology, and presenting that to their committee to get approval to move forward with their research. And then the culminating experience is their final research defense, which occurs once they complete their research and complete their write-up. So 4 major milestones that happen fairly spaced out over the 4 years that students are in the program.
And one other question for Betsy and Jessica, you do have assistantships available, correct?
Correct. So each year we have 4 graduate assistantships. And these graduate assistantships cover tuition for the students. And in exchange, students will work 20 hours per week for their mentor. And students do receive a stipend as well. So these are pretty competitive. And if students are interested in them during the application process in SOFIS, they will check that they're interested. And then our highly rated students will be interviewed during the admissions process to determine whether we can offer a graduate assistantship or not. So that's a really great option for students who are coming in and want to work, on their degree full time while, having that support of a stipend and tuition support.
I had a quick question about the application process that you were just talking about. I know that we talked about students coming in without an MPH. Do students have to have a master's degree to apply, or could our MPS students apply like when they were finishing our program?
They could apply when they're finishing the program. They would just need to have that degree by the time they started the DrPH program. So we have had students apply in their last year of their master's program, and then their acceptance would be contingent on them actually graduating from that master's program. And if students are in that case, I would suggest some of their letters of support. Maybe their faculty mentors could mention that they're on track for graduation and that sort of thing. But yes, we have accepted students in the past who have come straight from a master's program.
Thank you. I don't, go ahead. I was just
Well, I
checking to
think
see if I
I
saw
don't
any
see
hands
anything
raised.
coming out. I don't see any questions or hands or anything coming up. I think this has been good.
And if anyone has questions, feel free to shoot Dr. Aumiller or myself an email. We're happy to talk with you further. And Betsy just put her email there in the chat. I will add mine as well.
Please feel free to reach out to us. We can meet in person or certainly virtually to give more details about the program and talk about your individual, interests and what your path may look like.
Great, thanks, Betsy. Thanks, Jessica, and for everybody joining in. Jen, any final
Thanks,
words?
everyone.
No, I was just going to say thank you again for taking your Wednesday night and helping us put this presentation on. This was a lot of really good information, and I know that the students here and the students that are going to watch the recording will really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen and Jean, for approaching us about this. It's a great idea, and we look forward to having the students apply to the program.
Nice to meet everyone. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye.